Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Cyber Queens Podcast Live. We are, of course, your hosts, Meryl and Erica. Amber is out this week. She'll be back in future iterations. So I'm Meryl, resident offensive expert, pen test ninja, and ethical hacker. I'm joined by Erica.
I'm Erica Eakins, recovering sales rep and now CEO of a firm to be announced soon.
Woo! Can't wait for that. And today's a very exciting day for me, particularly. We are joined today by Dr. Nikki Robinson. Nikki, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Hello. I'm a security architect, professor, doer of things in security, and a mom. And I have 2 kids.
Excellent.
So, yeah, all the things.
Yeah. Yay! Okay, let me tell you, I'm so excited for today's episode. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about cyberpsychology and human factors, which are Nikki's specialties. But before we get into that, I just want to say I have loved Nikki since I met her. I actually was a guest on her podcast. She runs with Chris Hughes called Resilient Cyber Podcast. So we'll do a plug on that at the end. But then I got to meet her in person at Uniting Women in Cyber, which is hosted by the Cyber Guild. And we were on the same panel. We were like, oh my God. And it was so fun.
It was awesome.
It was the best. And we've basically been best friends ever since then, I would say, right?
Like, just BFFs. It just happened very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. And now before we move on to the meat of the episode, small plug on us both. So Nikki is also joining me next week in Vegas as a finalist for Cybersecurity Woman of the Year by the United Cyber Alliance. So that is amazing. You are a finalist in which category?
Influencer of the Year.
Influencer of the Year.
Wow. Yeah.
Low-key brag. So we've been picking out gala gowns together and we're really excited to hang out and tear up Vegas a little bit. It's going to be fun.
So excited.
So excited. Also, Nikki may or may not have put the seed in my brain to get a doctorate sometime soon. So we'll see if I can.
Oh yeah. I'm just slowly hey, so you're going to do that? So when are you doing that?
When are you doing that? Are we doing that? I'm like, yes, we're going to get there eventually.
I need to talk to you about that because I think that's my next step too. I have 2 master's degrees. So.
Oh, we have to talk after. Oh yeah. I'll get you signed up.
We'll do that. Okay. So Nikki, I'm so excited because she is a security architect like me. So this is the first time the architects have outnumbered the salespeople on the podcast, which is very exciting. So tell us about who you are and what you do in your role as a security architect.
Sure. So I get to do lots of things as a security architect, which is my favorite thing. Every day is a little bit different. So I do everything from, coming into an environment that, needs to be stood up and they need someone to come in and say, yes, this is right. Or no, let's rework a few things. So I get to do things from a high level architecture view, right? Whether that's cloud, on-prem, doesn't really matter. Just sort of do all of that. But I also get to work with a lot of different people. So I work with everybody from, systems owners to developers and administrators and sort of everyone in between to just sort of help them secure all the things.
Yeah, excellent. And that's, a large part of what I do as well. Architects can serve in so many different roles. We can physically help you architect infrastructure. We can do design reviews. We can advise on policy. But see how being an architect at different organizations actually manifests. Now, the big carrot for the day. So you are like me, which is why I love you so much. It wasn't enough for you just to go out and get a doctorate in science, so a DSc in cybersecurity. You had to take it a step farther and double doctorate and get a PhD on top of that. So tell me about your doctorate specialty and how you apply that to your job as an architect.
Yeah. Okay. So the DSc in cybersecurity, by the way, was totally a career thing. I knew I needed to do it. It was I've got to do this if I'm going to be in cybersecurity. But I was also really interested in vulnerability chaining. So I was deep diving into vulnerability management, and I wanted to really understand vulnerabilities and not as, single entities, but how they work together and how malicious actors are actually going through and picking them and actually using them to get into systems. And as a network defender, what?
Why you whale my secrets? Why you telling the world how I operate? Jeez. Okay,
I know,
continue.
But as network defenders, we typically don't look at that stuff. We look at, okay, well, how many vulnerabilities? What do we need to remediate? One at a time. And so I started asking questions about what about medium and low vulnerabilities? How can they be used together and how can they be leveraged? And lows and mediums are still exploitable. And why aren't we asking about that? So that was the DSC. And then the PhD in human factors was more about the language that we use and understanding like how other people understand vulnerability chaining. Because the DSC, I really found out that like, oh, I'm asking the wrong questions because people don't understand what this means. So the human factors was like, how do I talk to people about vulnerability chaining? How do we understand this and use this as an industry? So for me, taking a lot of that research has helped me as an architect to say, okay, the language I'm using doesn't always translate to the people I'm talking to. You know, it's because they speak a different language. They're worried about different things. And so how can I communicate more effectively to people and help them understand risk in their context, in their world?
And I think that's so important. That's such an important part of what we do, because when you are at like the technician or the analyst level, you're pretty much just dealing with other technicians and analysts who of course speak your language and know what you're talking about. But when you get to those higher echelons, you start interacting with more business partners, which is the new word for stakeholders. So I mean stakeholders when I say that, but we're not supposed to say that anymore. So when you're interacting with more business partners and departmental managers, they do come from non-technical functions, but they do need to understand and have a vested interest in what we do on the technology and the cyber side. They do come from technical functions, but they do need to understand and have a vested interest in what we do on. Erica, I was like, that's not me. Is it? That's never happened before. This is a live show. It's fine. Everything is fine.
Sorry about that. I don't know what to say. My phone just like started playing the live. Sorry.
That's so funny.
Put it down while you're in class, Erica. Put it down while you're in class.
I didn't even have it. It was on my desk in front of me. Sorry about that.
Little double Meryl for you all. Yeah, so I was just saying, so I think that's so applicable. That's such a crucial skill. And that's one of the things that I do as well is, you know, even as a red teamer, I would start reaching out and asking people about what they do and trying to explain what we do and trying to see if we can get on the same page, get on a common language about vulnerabilities and exploits and things like that. What about you, Erica? What do you think?
I'm just excited that I've met somebody that has a doctorate degree in cyber right now. Like I'm so amazed with you right now that when I was reading the write-up for this episode, I was really excited. But I actually know a gentleman that is going to come on the show. I can't say who he is, but he also, I believe, has the human factor, and he has a PhD as well, just like yourself. And he is very impressive. And he lives in Colorado Springs. He's a friend's fiance who I haven't met yet, or I haven't met him yet in person, but I connected with him on LinkedIn, and I was just like, I had like the little sticker shock, or like, you know, like the celebrity shock. And that's kind of how I am right now. I think it's very important to understand the human factor, because insider threat is one of the biggest threats for any organization. So when you understand it from a psychology perspective, I think you're way ahead of the game. And the fact that, is it Dr. Nikki or Nikki?
Oh, please just call me Nikki. Yeah.
Okay. The fact that
that's what she says, but I frequently embarrass her by saying Dr. Nikki has arrived.
Yeah, she does.
She's like, please stop that. Oh my God.
I think also understanding it from like your own insider threat perspective, Nikki, and I know insider threat and vulnerabilities, like that's like two different conversations, but I worked for an organization where insider threat was one of the major things that I was, offerings that I was selling. You also have to understand the criminal aspect of it. So like, what's the psychology behind the criminal mind? And I'm not saying you sit with criminals, but does that actually help you understand like their perspective?
Yeah, I mean,
Shush, Meryl.
You know what's an interesting, bringing up insider threat, right? So we talk a lot about in the industry, 99% of attacks come from like phishing, right? 90% depending on what statistics, right?
Phishing is a highly useful skill. I'm telling you people this all the time.
I work for a company that sold that as well. I'm an expert in that, on the sales side.
Well, but what I wanted to mention, because it's an important point, is that insider threat might make up 1 to 2% of sort of like data exfiltration, but the idea is that an insider, the potential risk or the amount of data that they can exfil or the amount of damage that they can cause to an organization is just as detrimental and sometimes worse because they know the organization. So insider threat, insider external threat, it's all bad.
Yeah,
it is.
And insider threat can be something as simple as like even if they weren't actively working with a threat actor, but they get a phishing email and they know that's sus, but they click on it anyway because they're like, fine, have at it. I don't care what happens to this org.
Oh, kind of like how one of a local government entity that I saved, they had a phishing email come in that they didn't know it was a fish, that their contractor had to update for the ACH for the $7 million payment that they had to make to their contractor. It happened to be a fish. So this local entity paid $7 million because it came exactly from their contractor. I even looked at it. It was really good. It was a really, really good one.
And that's what we refer to when we refer to supply chain attacks, by the way. What we're saying is we're not going to go after you, but we think someone you work with and someone they work with might have weaker security than you do. So we're going to get in that way.
Well, the accounts payable person had no idea. They need to train their entire industry. Those phishing simulations that your company does, please don't be mad at them. They're amazing. They're for a reason. Yeah,
but what I'm saying is if they know it is, and again, it's a malicious insider, right? They're like, I know that looks suspicious. I'm going to click it anyway and just let them. I'm not going to give them data, but I'm just going to let them in the front door with mom and dad downstairs and see what they can find. Go ahead.
A disgruntled employee, Tesla. Yeah. Disgruntled employees, they just,
Yeah. But anyway, so do you do a lot of advising on insider threat? Is that a lot of the work you do, or do you do it more in a sense of bringing people together from various departments and functions?
Yeah, I'm definitely not an insider threat specialist, like not even by far. I think more so from thinking about, an external entity coming in. Once they're inside, they are an insider, right? So it's more about that external threat. Once they come inside, how are they going to move internally? So in some ways, I think that there's a lot of balance between the two. But I think the interesting thing for me is an incident response is it's not just about, understanding, okay, they, maybe they dropped this payload or they accessed through this server. But it's sort of okay, they did that. What else could they have gotten access to? Or what else would they have been interested in? So if they got in here knowing that they were interested in some specific type of information, what else might they try to find and exfil at the same time?
I know. Yeah. I know I kind of went off on a tangent, but it's all related. I just, I hear these things and I'm like, ooh, insider threat. Yes.
And I'm going to do a plug for purple teaming off of that, because that's kind of what purple teaming aims to do. Originally it aimed to bring, the defenders and the exploiters together and simply say, educate and say, all you saw was us do X, Y, and Z, but you don't know why we chose to do those things. When we were presented with this stage, we poked around and saw this and we decided this is our best bet. Why? Because it could land us here. Why? Because we want to be up here. And we were educating them on our motivations and our mindset on why we picked certain things or chose to execute something a certain way. Rather than just seeing the end result, they got to see all the thinking and pivoting and toiling that went into that.
The method.
So that they understand where these things came from. So if I see someone, if I don't look at logs the same way as a defender. If I look at logs and I see, some password sprays, some new creation of certain assets, new users, S3, permissions changing, stuff like that, I'm I know what they're doing. They were trying to poke around here to see if they could do this, to see if they could get here. Whereas someone else is just I should stop that from happening. And I should go in and contain that and back it up and delete it. And I'm I know what they're going for, but these people are just interested in stopping the bad thing from happening. It's very interesting.
Yeah, because everybody it's true for the audience that doesn't know that it's very hard to be a specialist in everything. So you're talking about vulnerabilities. I talked about insider threat. You're talking about, logging and people get alert fatigue, all this exploits. So it's how do you bridge that gap from your perspective and put it all into one education? Nikki?
Yeah, it is interesting too, I will say, because I've been fighting for about a year and a half to have my paper that I wrote in Human Factors, the vulnerability. So I came up with this new terminology called vulnerability chaining blindness. It will be out in December, but I've been fighting for about a year and a half to have this paper published because a lot of the feedback I get is, well, this isn't really cybersecurity. This isn't human factors. This isn't either, it's not one or the other. And I'm no, it's a combination of both. It also includes, I think part of the problem is it includes some terminology from criminal psychology. And so that was just, they were this is too much. You can't put all this together. So I think really what I found out from writing this paper and from like doing the research, which I would encourage anyone in security that is interested in research, like pursue it. Reach out to anyone who has like, you can have a master's degree. You do not have to have a doctorate to do research. But anyway, I found that through doing this research, it was like, you know what? Probably no one is going to read this paper for like 10 years. I think it's like I think it's too
Ahead of its
far
time.
out there. I think it's just people to get a grasp on it, because we're still doing like secure config. We're still doing like all of those basic things that we need to do that I think it's a little far out there.
Well,
Y'all ain't mastered the basics. Y'all ain't mastered the basics of the CIS first 20, and that's why you can't even get to human factors. It's because you're not doing the basics right.
Well, and then here's the argument that I see in organizations all the time. You have network security and then you have cybersecurity. They are not the same thing, but they need to marry each other. And the organizations internally are fighting like, that's a purple team, or that's a blue team, or that's a red team. Or like, no, it is all one thing. But yes, network security is different than cyber because they do have two different definitions, but it all intertwines. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I literally wrote a book called Mind the Tech Gap because of the same conflict between IT and security. So there is certainly like within security, I think we get siloed sometimes, like people are working on different teams and things. But it's the same thing between like IT and developers and security. It's like, hey, I'm doing this thing over here. You're doing this thing over here. It's totally separate. And it's like, well, actually, if we work together, we'll do things. Well, we can really make things a lot more efficient if we work together.
Yeah. Yet another plug for collaborative security. Yet another plug for purple. By the way, I want you all to know, I've kind of gotten away from addressing purple teams as a proper team because honestly, it shouldn't be a team. It shouldn't be only those 6 of us who work on this team are collaborating. It should really be a practice, like AppSec, like DevSecOps. Like it should be a holistic, systemic thing for the org. Because when you do break silos and when you do get people talking, you just get everybody on a collab call, get business partners, devs, exploiters, defenders, get everybody on one collab call and just see what they talk about. Just see what comes out of it. Just see who's buddies after that.
I love it. Should we call it like purple SecOps or something like that? So it fits into the like SecOps field.
It's called white teaming, actually, because like that's what happens when you combine all the functions and all the colors from a light perspective, right? On the light, what is that? The prism of light. Yeah, the spectrum. There you go. On the light spectrum, when you get all of them combined, it's white. So it's called white teaming, but I don't think it's taking because it is classified as a separate team rather than a practice. So maybe we should rebrand it. Maybe we should rebrand as like collab SecOps or something like that. And then it would take root better in organizations. Unicorn ops. Yeah, I love that. There you go. Unicorn SecOps. Bring all the unicorns together. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Nikki's got a hard stop today, so this is going to be a short episode. So before we get too far down this rabbit hole, because I'm pretty sure we could talk about the need for collaborative security all freaking day, especially with Miss Human Factors here. Very interesting about Nikki. So she's only been in cyber for about 4 years, like me. Before that, she did something else. And before that, she did something else. And that something else was non-technical. So we have another non-technical pivot success story. Please tell us about your journey, first into IT ops and then into cyber. I'm so interested.
Yeah, so I was, and it's funny because the whole human factors thing like totally came full circle. So in undergrad, I was actually going to get a degree in psychology. I was interested in abnormal psychology. And so I was going to study that and maybe do like neuroscience or something. I wasn't sure. And then, so I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my degree. I'm working as an admin assistant at a company. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to get an associate in general studies. I have no clue what I want to do. So got an associate in general studies. And while I'm working, I worked for the director of HR. His name was Barry Beam, and he is, one of the most influential people in my life because he got me into IT ops. So I didn't know what I want to do. I'm an admin assistant. I'm doing filing, like all the normal things, getting coffee for board meetings and stuff. And I had a conversation with him and I was like, I still think I want to do psychology, but I'm kind of interested in IT. I had a friend at the time who was on help desk and I was very interested in the like, ooh, you get to like figure stuff out. You get to troubleshoot, you get to do all these kind of cool things. And so he had sort of been mentoring me anyway. And when I went and talked to Barry, he was like, what is wrong with you? Go get a degree in IT, go into computer science. It'll be a great career. Like you're going to love it. So he's the reason I went and got my bachelor's degree in IT and software engineering. He is
Male
also
advocate.
and he is also the first person who got me a help desk job. So he made sure that I got that help desk job and started my career in IT. So I give him all the credit in the world for getting me into IT. I'm so thankful.
I love that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So already, so she has seen a place where her interest and her skills might transfer, and she got in on help desk. Like I know I say it all the time, but those of you out there who are like, I'm not going to do it unless I have the pen tester job I want or this job that I want. I'm like, I got in risk. She got in help desk. You can get in anywhere and then just start contributing and then pivot out of that position.
Yep.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yes.
And Brand.
Yes. And then, so I'd been in IT for many years, and I was getting to the point where I was kind of like, okay, like what's next? What do I do? And I started working with some security people, like in investigations, because of my skill set in IT. So when I started working that, I was like, ooh, security's kind of fun. That could be kind of interesting. And then I got interested in vulnerabilities. And so I started the DSC while I was still in IT. Fun fact, I actually got rejected from the DSC program initially because I wasn't in cybersecurity. And so I fought for it. They got me into the DSC program. And I met a wonderful person named Dr. Philip Culp, who was in my cohort. And I had tried applying for security jobs. I had tried moving in the org I was in. They wouldn't let me move. So anyway, so I met him, and he was like, a job opened up, and he was like, come be a security engineer. And I was like, I don't have 10 years of experience in security engineering. I don't know what I'm doing. And he was like, nah, you have the skill set, come do it. So he gave me my first opportunity in security, and has been, And so anyway, I've been very fortunate to have some great, like, male allies, great people in my life who took a chance on me.
So I'm going to stop right there. We talk a lot about people who are not advocating for women, minorities, in the LGBTQIA plus community, but this is a great example of that they are out there. We just need more of them.
Yes.
So yeah.
I love that. First of all, so Nikki advocated for herself. She wanted something, she went for it, and then she was denied. Did she take that no for an answer, or did she use that as fuel? Use your no as fuel. Failure is fuel to try again. And that's what I always advocate. I always say you have to advocate for yourself. Nobody's going to know your skills, drive, or how much better than you. So it might not see it. I shine way more in person than I shine on paper.
You're frozen, Meryl.
You see me in person, but
you're back.
My back. But if you see me in person, it's a totally different vibe. So I love that Nikki advocated for herself. She knew she was capable of it. She knew what she wanted, and she went for it. And then she did what we've all done, right? They were like, come take this job. And I've really gotten every job I've had in cyber by saying I'm not qualified for this job. And I don't know why women do this, because men have this mindset that they are qualified for any job. And we tell ourselves we are not qualified for any job.
We do.
We just start picking it apart and saying someone has to convince us that we do.
To be fair, I have been told I'm not qualified for several roles by a man, but that's not all men.
Yeah, I will say I've been very lucky. I have some great I now have some really great female role models too. Like I would say just in the last 2 years, I've met so many more amazing women in cybersecurity, like Meryl, we got to meet, and that was amazing. But I will say I have found cybersecurity to be such a great community. There have been so many people I've met that are encouraging and want to see you succeed. It's been very different. So it's been a nice change.
No, that's the positive side of cyber. And it is a huge community. We talk a lot about the naysayers and the people against certain classes and genders and groups, but there are a ton of supportive people. Some of my best friends, Meryl, Amber, they came from meeting them in cyber jobs, right? In the cyber community. So it is a great community. We do say this, there's the negative side, but we also do like to pinpoint the positive side. And thank you for sharing that, because we need more of that.
Yeah. Just keep in mind, we're here to give you the real of what it is. And while, some of the experiences and people you will encounter will be negative. There are those people in every industry. We're not saying it's specific to cyber. They're everywhere. But none of us would be here today where we are if someone hadn't believed in us. And honestly, my first CISO who believed in me and gave me lessons on IP addressing and encryption downgrade attacks, Bert Carroll, he was phenomenal. And he believed in me and he saw the potential. And so someone saw the potential in all of us. And that's why it's up to those of us who have come before to help those of us who come after, especially women. But we do have our colleagues and allies out there that we love I've met some of the best and worked with for some of the best humans who are all gentlemen. So, just keep in mind that when it comes to our perspective, we're just here to give you the 50% of it that is not so great, but the other 50% of it that is really uplifting and really helpful as well. Always keep that in mind. So with that, we've got about 4 minutes left. So Nikki, please do tell the audience if they are interested in resilient cyber. I'm myself, I'm a big fan of cyber resilience, where they can find you and when.
Yes. So Chris and I are wrapping season 4 for the Resilient Cyber podcast. We're going to take about a month off. I always tell Chris, let's take 6 weeks. And he's like, 4 weeks? Did you say 3 weeks? Did you say, yeah.
Next week?
Yeah, he's like, you mean next Friday? And I'm like, no, we're going to take a break. We'll reset. So we'll be coming back early September. So we are on LinkedIn. We're on YouTube. We're all over the place. So you can find us there. And,
what day and time?
Fridays at 9:30 a.m. Eastern.
Fridays at 9:30 Eastern. So 12.
Yes.
So 6:30 Pacific.
Yeah. So just get a cup of coffee. Just get.
My one episode that I did, they're like, we're recording at 6. I'm like,
yeah, I was so grateful. I was like, oh my God, thank you, Meryl. I had no idea you were West Coast. I was like, oh my God.
I was like, it's okay. I love you. Thank you so much. It's all good. Anyway, yeah. So definitely go check that out. I myself have been on. It's a fabulous podcast. They have really knowledgeable people on there. From some very high up places in specific organizations and government agencies that Chris Hughes happens to have a great plug into. Wonderful podcast. Lots of great info. Definitely go check it out. Also, you can find small plug on Hacker Summer Camp next week. Hacker Summer Camp is coming up. For those of you who are unaware, it's Diana Initiative, Black Hat, Squad Con, DEF Con, B-Sides LV, and many little things in between. You can find us.
World.
Yep, you can find us, your cyber queens, at the Cyberpod World panel featuring us, Hacker Valley Media, Bare Knuckles Brass Tacks, Audience First, and Miss Alyssa Knight from Night Studios herself. It's going to be one of the coolest events to Black Hat. You can find Nikki and myself at the United Cyber Alliance Women in Cybersecurity Awards. We will both be there at the gala, and I'll be running around Vegas all week. So please do link up with me if you want to find me. I'm speaking at Diana, I'm speaking at SquadCon, and I'm speaking at AppSec Village at DEF CON. So you can find me any of the places, basically.
Amazing.
And with that, Nikki, any final takeaways you want to leave the audience with? Anything about your specialty, about getting into cyber, about getting doctorates, about literally any of the phenomenal things that it is you do? You're so much like me. That's why we're best friends.
That's why we're BFFs. No, I want to leave with 2 things for anyone who's thinking about getting into cyber, or has gotten a lot of no's, or people telling him no, you don't have the right skill set, blah blah blah. Trust your gut. Follow your instinct. Keep pushing. If you think you need a specific cert, go do that. If you think you need an education, or you need to network, or you need to go to conferences, trust your gut. Do those things, because that'll lead you to some great opportunities. And then the last thing I wanted to say was just we just need to be kind to each other. Let's just be kind to each other and have a great time. And that's it.
That's what we do. We have a great time. I always have a great time, especially when I hang out with you two. Every time I'm in DC, I hit Nikki up. I'm like, do you want to meet up and have fun? So
I love it. And thank you so much for having me on today.
Absolutely. This has been a wonderful day. I've had a wonderful time. Thank you for making the time in your busy schedule. That has been this week's episode of the Cyber Queens. Next week, we will be having our episode, but I will be at summer camp, so it'll be a little bit more of an on-the-scenes episode. And then the following week, we'll be back in the studio. We hope to see you all there. We wish you all the love, light, and success. If you do have any questions, comments, concerns, you can always reach out to any one of the queens. We are here to help you. With that, we hope you have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Nikki, for being with us today and the wonderful discussion. Yes. If you want to learn more about human factors or capital tech, which is where I'm going to probably do my doctorate, be sure to hit up Nikki and DDoS her spam DDoS.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Yeah.
Out of love. It's all out of love. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.